When it comes to love and hip-hop, Atlanta, Jasmine's personal development. Love and hip-hop. Atlanta has shown to be a show that feeds on drama, relationships, and the complexities of the music industry for a considerable amount of time. The series dives into the personal lives of a variety of figures in the Atlanta music scene, frequently stretching the boundaries of entertainment with unfiltered depictions of love, betrayal, and development. Jasmine, a lady who has undergone tremendous evolution in her role, storyline, and character development since her introduction, has been one of the most intriguing and frequently divisive characters on the program. She has also been one of the most consistently controversial characters. Within the context of the program, Jasmine, a character whose presence has provoked both drama and conversation, exemplifies a kind of underdog trajectory. Unlike the majority of characters, Jasmine's development delves into topics such as parenthood, identity, and redemption. This is in contrast to the majority of characters whose arcs revolve around personal and professional success or failure. In order to comprehend her development, it is essential to follow her trip and investigate the ways in which her role has evolved throughout the course of the seasons. Jasmine. The infamous affair is introduced in the first paragraph. The first time Jasmine debuted on Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta, she was presented as the woman who was having an affair with Kirk Frost, who was a pivotal character in the program. The fact that Jasmine played the other woman immediately made her a contentious character, and the fact that Kirk was married to Rashida, one of the most cherished and long-lasting cast members, also contributed to this impact. As a result of Kirk's adultery, which led to public outbursts, confrontations filled with tears, and complex emotional exchanges between Kirk, Rashida, and Jasmine, the affair was discovered in a dramatic manner. When the audience first encountered Jasmine, they could not have a favorable impression of her. Due to the fact that she was a new character who was thrown into the turbulence of an established marriage, she became the emblem of treachery. Her contacts with Kirk, albeit being strong and frequently emotionally charged, were viewed through the prism of judgment and disdain, particularly because she was aware that Kirk was married and had children. She was the precipitating factor that led to the dissolution of the Frosts' marriage, and as a consequence, her personality was primarily characterized by the affair and the consequences that followed. Despite this, there were indications of Jasmine's humanity even in her earliest appearances. Her portrayal was not limited to that of a simple antagonist. Rather, she was depicted to possess feelings, motivations, and a history or background. Her relationships with her family, her struggles as a young lady entangled in a tragic love triangle, and her own aspirations were all discreetly portrayed throughout the course of the story. It was clear from these elements that she would play a more significant part than the homewrecker position that many viewers initially perceived her to play. 2. Jasmine's experiences as a mother, dealing with the pressures of family and life. During the course of the ongoing events surrounding Jasmine's affair with Kirk, an additional critically important facet of her story was revealed: her function as a mother. Because Jasmine became pregnant with Kirk's child, the plot of her story became more complicated as a result of this event. When it was revealed that she was expecting his child, she found herself at the center of a new kind of drama. This drama was about motherhood, duty, and the expectations that were placed upon her as a woman and a mother combined. Unlike her previous portrayal, in which she was portrayed as an outsider who was involved in a catastrophic affair, Jasmine's pregnancy humanized her character in a way that made her more approachable to viewers. The emotional weight of raising a child, particularly in the setting of a complicated family dynamic involving Kirk, Rashida, and their children, gave possibilities for the viewer to perceive Jasmine in a more nuanced light. This was especially applicable in the context of the family dynamic. During her pregnancy, she underwent a transformation from the homewrecker persona to that of a mother who was attempting to construct a future for herself and her kid. This transformation was reflected by the fact that she became pregnant. It was not an easy road for Jasmine to go through the process of becoming a mother, and it became one of the defining features of her character progress. She was a young mother who was raising her child alone, and she was forced to deal with the realities of co-parenting with someone who was already married and involved in his own family drama. Her child's birth was a significant turning point in her tale, and fans watched as she struggled to come to terms with her role in Kirk's life, the responsibility of raising a child in the public glare, and her yearning for her own sense of identity and independence. 3. Relationships that are fraught with conflict, love, betrayal, and personal development. Despite the fact that Jasmine's pregnancy brought about a huge change in her personality, the development of her relationship with Kirk was one of the most complicated aspects of her plot. As he attempted to strike a balance between his commitments to Rashida and his developing relationship with Jasmine, Kirk first gave the impression of being somewhat distant from the situation. The devotion that Kirk had to Jasmine changed over the course of the seasons, and his behaviors were frequently inconsistent, which resulted in conflict and mistrust between the two of them. This led to a cycle of emotional vulnerability and self-doubt for Jasmine, which she created for herself. Both a need for independence and a need to receive approval from Kirk, she found herself in a difficult position. There was no doubt that she had a strong emotional investment in Kirk. However, this investment was complicated by the fact that he was in a relationship with Rashida and the wider consequences of their affair. The feelings of betrayal that Jasmine felt at various points in time were not just directed toward Kirk, but also toward the entire circumstance that she found herself in. Despite the fact that their relationship was turbulent, it was obvious that Jasmine was struggling with a need for genuine love and respect. This was something that had been difficult for her to obtain in her interactions with Kirk. The turmoil that Jasmine was going through produced an interesting dynamic for the development of her character. She was no longer only a lady who was disregarded or a bad figure in a love triangle. Rather, she transformed into a woman who was gaining the ability to manage the complexity of love, betrayal, and self-worth. It was during the course of the seasons that Jasmine started to exhibit symptoms of maturation. She began to understand the significance of her own identity, which was distinct from her links to Kirk or the turmoil that surrounded his marriage to Rashida. Jasmine's development was also significantly influenced by the bonds she developed with the other ladies on the show. Jasmine was able to acquire extremely useful knowledge regarding self-respect, independence, and the significance of having a strong support system as a result of her interactions with other cast members, particularly those who were already well established in their own careers and relationships. It was through these meetings that she came to the realization that her value was not determined by the romantic relationships she was involved in or the amount of turmoil that surrounded her connection with Kirk. 4. Shifting the focus. Aspirations for independent business ventures and entrepreneurship. Over the course of her maturation, Jasmine began to transfer her focus from drama and interpersonal disputes to her own personal ambitions and her professional endeavors. An additional big transition occurred when she went from being a supporting figure in a love triangle to becoming a woman who was working toward her own objectives. Over time, Jasmine began to place a greater emphasis on her own personal growth, putting more of an emphasis on her own commercial endeavors and establishing a name for herself that went beyond her relationship to Kirk and the Frost family. One of the most important components of Jasmine's development was her aspiration to achieve financial independence and to carve out her own niche in the entertainment world. While the plot of her story continued to be linked with the drama of her previous relationships, her personal aspirations started to become more apparent. Following in the footsteps of many of the ladies on the show who were not only defined by their personal relationships, but also by their business drive, she started looking into chances in the music industry. She was following in the footsteps of several of the women on the show. Jasmine began to position herself as a lady who had a plan for her future as a result of her business endeavors, which allowed her to shed her image as merely a character who was entangled in a messy love triangle. It was crucial that this shift occurred because it allowed the audience to perceive her as more than just a player in the drama that was being played out by other people. It brought attention to the fact that she had the opportunity to define her own narrative and take charge of her life in a manner that was more fulfilling. 5. On the path to redemption and fresh starts, Jasmine, a more self-sufficient woman. By the time the plot of Jasmine's plotline developed over the course of several seasons, she had experienced a tremendous shift. She had gradually become a more self-assured and independent figure, and she was no longer entirely characterized by the blunders, betrayals, and turbulent relationships that she had experienced in the past. Her journey toward personal development was highlighted by the revelation that she had the capacity to control her destiny, despite the drama and negativity that had previously surrounded her. This realization was critical to her journey toward personal growth. There was a lot of subtlety to Jasmine's redemption storyline. It was not about entirely deleting her past, rather, it was about gaining knowledge from it, taking responsibility for her acts, and making use of her experiences to move herself forward. In the process of becoming a woman, she evolved into someone who was not just seeking validation from other people, but also learning to affirm herself. As a result of this process, she evolved into a more complicated and multifaceted figure that portrayed the realities of maturation, self-discovery, and the difficulties of navigating the ups and downs of life. The way she interacted with other people was another aspect that represented her development. Despite the fact that there were still instances of conflict between Jasmine and Kirk and Rashida, she displayed a greater level of maturity in the way that she dealt with these situations. No longer did she want to bring others down or to manufacture drama for the sake of it. She stopped doing both. Instead, she started approaching her relationships with a feeling of respect for herself as well as for other people, which further strengthened her redemption arc. Jasmine's legacy on love and hip-hop. Atlanta is the sixth and final conclusion. The journey that Jasmine has taken on love and hip-hop. Atlanta has been one of great growth, from a personal standpoint as well as from a character standpoint. The growth of Jasmine, from her initial appearance as the woman who sparked a scandalous affair to her metamorphosis into a more self-sufficient and confident woman, exemplifies the difficulty of navigating personal issues while being in the public eye. Her plots, despite the fact that they occasionally provoked controversy, provided instructive lessons about the value of oneself, the power of redemption, and the influence of reinvention. As the storyline of love and hip-hop, Atlanta continues to develop, Jasmine's storyline also continues to develop. She is a symbol of the potential for personal development and the significance of gaining wisdom from one's personal mistakes. It is possible that Jasmine's character began as a source of contention. Nevertheless, as time progressed, she evolved into a representation of resiliency, illustrating that even in the most trying of circumstances, one may triumph over them and forge a new path for oneself. Jasmine's development serves as a reminder that people are capable of changing, evolving, and redefining themselves. This is especially important in the realm of reality television, where characters are frequently characterized by the most dramatic situations they experience together. The transition that Jasmine's character undergoes demonstrates that no one is beyond the possibility of atonement, and that progress is always possible, regardless of the challenges that one faces.